And we should be recording. Good. So, good evening to everyone. This is not going to be real long. I just wanted to give you a quick overview because obviously on Saturday we will have time together. And trust me, I think I know all of you quite well because Dr. Ed has been feeding me information about you guys constantly.
Uh-oh.
Now, I won't say what he's been feeding me.
Uh-oh.
Whoa, that sounds like a train coming through. Yeah, I'm looking forward to interacting with all you guys. As I said, I do feel, and if you can, just maybe somebody better some interesting sounds in the background. It's not those waves in that video. So, my name is John Gould, and I will talk to you in much more detail on Saturday. I'm still waiting to hear where we're going to be. Owen is trying to get us into Drexel 1 in room 004, but they have us in another place right now, so just stay tuned. He'll probably email all of us. So basically what we're going to be doing is, as you look at this, I'm hoping you're going to find this a very interesting process because for 10 weeks, you're going to go into a design studio. And basically, you're going to be going up the U. So we're going to be actually going up the right side of the U, doing a lot of prototyping and working for and you're going to do a lot of playing because play is an extremely important component to understanding creativity and innovation. So, and the basis of what we will be doing basically will be this. We're going to be looking at what this concept of design thinking is. And so, and you're going to learn to deal with unpredictability. So that will be the other side. So we're going to be dealing a lot with design thinking, and what I want, and we'll be going into this in much more detail. But basically, what we're going to be working on, you're going to function in two teams, and Saturday you're going to design those two teams because, as Dr. Ed told me, he had you working in many different configurations, and then once you know what this program is about. I'm going to let you put together two 5-person teams. And what we're going to be looking at is within that team is, really beginning to believe the difference in terms of the types of schools that we're going to need in relationship to the future. And that what design thinking is that it's very human-centered. It functions off of the concept of human-centeredness. And it's highly collaborative, it's highly optimistic, and it's experimental, and it's experiential. So these are the types of concepts that we're going to be looking at, as we go through this process. So, what is the design process? Well, basically, it gets into this idea of design thinking. And when you looked at the syllabus, you saw the framework for looking at systems thinking, then theory U, and then design thinking as the process of making these come alive. But it's a very structured approach that allows us to look at divergent and convergent thinking. And because it is a deeply human approach, it really relies on your ability to be intuitive, to draw upon your senses, to be able to interpret differently in terms of how you're looking at things and to develop ideas that are emotionally meaningful to you as the design team. So when you look at that book, and we'll talk about the books in a couple minutes, the design thinking book, Tim Brown's book, that's where that's coming from. That design if you think about it from a theory U point of view, you've had open mind. Well, this is really getting you into open heart and allowing open will to emerge, and that will happen to you over the 10 weeks. And then what it also deals with is that there's 5 phases that you're going to be going through as we look at the challenge that you're going to be facing. And that will be discovery. So you as an individual and collectively are going to have a challenge, and then the question is, how are you going to approach it? And then what will happen is this is interpretation. What do I learn about all this data that you're going to be exposed to? And then how do I interpret it? And then how do we collectively within a team begin to do the interpretation? Then you'll be moving into ideation, where you begin to explore the opportunities. From that, you can then understand what I can possibly create around this particular challenge that I'll be putting both teams in. And then finally is this experimentation. So when I have an idea, how do I build it? So your 5th week, when we meet for the second executive weekend, you are truly going to be playing. You're going to be dealing with objects. You're going to be thinking with your hands and not with your mind. So that concept comes about. And then finally, your teams then are going to move into an evolution of ideas, and you're going to try something new, and then you're going to understand how your team will be able to evolve it over time with a final project or product that you are going to create. So this is sort of in a nutshell, what this design process is about. And then the mental models that are going to be important for you to deal with is, in your own head, you will become a designer. You're going to think like a designer. You're going to explore the ideas. You then are going to embrace your beginner's mind, because what you're going to explore is the same way a very young child who begins to interact with their environment, they have no downloading. They have no encumbrance in exploring or playing with ideas. So this idea will be is to kind of bring you back to your early childhood as you began to explore ideas and clear out a lot of the downloading that you might have, particularly related to the concept of what a school is. And then the other one that we'll come into is really getting you to step out of your zone of comfort, because that's what learning is going to be about. And the way I designed this 10 weeks is that I'm going to stay in a highly divergent mode. And for some of you, if you are very highly convergent and are very sequential in your thinking, this might drive you a little crazy in the beginning. So, but don't worry about it. You'll get over it. So it generally takes for some people about 3 weeks to get that aha moment. But this is a mental model that I will be encouraging in you. And then really the other concept of this is that problems are just opportunities for design. Really, they're disguised. They give us the opportunities of looking at that. So when you think, if you go back to 800, and you think about Linsky and Heifetz when they were talking about the dance floor and the balcony, and you begin to think about the concept of the idea of what leadership is when you're looking at adaptive change versus technical issues around leadership, you're going to be able to experience a lot of these concepts and begin to play around with them. So I've been babbling for a couple of minutes. Any comments or questions up to this point, at least in terms of the initial material I've given you?
No.
Okay. So then let's take a look at your book, so we make sure that you have a pretty good understanding of what these books. So the first one is the Puccio book. This is the one that I will have you go through quite a bit of, and we'll point out a lot of chapters as you saw in the beginning of the first 2 weeks. And really what this is about is it gives you a lot of research-based concepts, because Puccio is one of the leading thinkers around creativity and leadership. And so what really he's talking about here, as I have here, is the ability to deliberately engage in one's imagination to define and guide a group towards novel, goal-directed concepts and new ways of doing things. So the Puccio book is very well structured, because what it does from a leadership point of view is that it will show you, as we go through the different chapters, how a divergent leader deals with the issues that he raises, and then what are those convergent skills that are necessary. So this book will be a rather important one for you to give you a pretty good grounding in some of the research that supports his ideas. Secondly, then, is Tom Kelly's book, The 10 Faces of Innovation. Now, the Kelly brothers, David Kelly, who is the founder of the D School at Stanford, and if you started watching the first video, you know that you saw one of the leaders of IDEO. And so really what this book is to get you to do a deeper dive into looking at yourself based upon the 10 Faces of Innovation. And what you're going to do as an assignment is, as you go through this book, and it's a pretty easy read to do, is to then begin to identify what ones of these personas that he talks about seem to be part of you, who you are, and which ones are not. And so within your teams, then, you're going to share that type of information. And as you're doing your journaling, particularly as you get into this, I want you, to think about how at least your self-analysis of these personas play into how you're acting within your team. And if you see that, and make comments in relationship to how other people, who identify themselves as certain types of personas, whether or not you observe that or you don't. And maybe within your teams, you'll discuss how these are playing out as we go through the process. So that's the 10 Faces of Innovation. The third book is Tim Brown, who you'll see a couple of his videos as we go through this course. Really what this is about is to give you a pretty good sense of what design thinking is, and what this idea of divergent, convergent thinking is, and why it's necessary that you're able to perform through both. And as it is, you're going to be talking about overlapping spaces. You're going to be talking about inspiration, ideation, and implementation, rather than a sequence of orderly steps. So what you're going to be dealing with as you read about what design thinking is getting into a very nonlinear process, even though you live in a very linear environments. And the question then for you, as we explore these 10 weeks, then is, how does this play out in your leadership development of getting people who many times are, remember what in 800, the concept of structure shapes the behavior of people over time, that we work in organizations that are highly linear, but the needs of the global economy, the needs of the emerging economies around the world are demanding much more nonlinear thinking in dealing with any issues that we're faced with. So this book is designed to help you to do a deep dive into your own thinking about this. And then the last book is Dan Pink's book, Drive. And why I included this into your readings, and particularly the last three, are pretty easy to read. And I'll just comment periodically during the weeks. I'll give you certain pages to look in these, but the expectation is you should be able to read these by the end of 10 weeks. So, because they have a lot to do, particularly Daniel Pink's, with this idea of extrinsic rewards. And particularly since you are focused on special education. And, I'm a former superintendent, but I'm also had a responsibility for special education, particularly when way back, because I'm old and ancient, back in 76, when 94-142 first came out. That was my first foray into public education. And guess what? They said, you're in charge of special ed. So I was there at the beginning of all the IEP development, of all this movement. But one of the things that always concerned me about particularly American special education programs is that it's driven by extrinsic reward systems. And what Pink's going to give you is a very interesting review of literature that really says, yeah, there's times when you use extrinsic rewards, but if you want to be able to develop a commitment to ideas, you cannot focus totally on extrinsic rewards. And particularly as special ed educators, I'm going to find this kind of interesting on how you look at his concepts, given the fact that a lot of times within special ed programs, it's based upon behavioralism. So, hopefully this will challenge some of your assumptions that you might have about this. So I'm looking forward to your reactions, to his work. So these are the 4 books. I'm going to make the assumption that you're all able to get them. That wasn't hard to get, either on Amazon or whatever, and start diving into them. Okay? Any questions about books so far?
No.
Okay? Good. I like this. We got this one spokesperson for the group. So really tells me. So that's good. Yeah, okay. We know. So they're the 4 books. Now, here's the process. And as I said, we'll look at this in a little bit more detail on Saturday. So the way I've organized this, the first 5 weeks, you're going to be doing discovery, interpretation, and ideation. And what you'll be looking at, basically is the first 3 weeks, you're going to be doing a lot of external scanning of a lot of data, a lot of material that I've given you. And we're going to do a lot of work on Saturday from the point of view of taking a look at the future and really what does it mean for people. And we're also going to utilize Otto's 3 divides as a way of beginning to think about structures of schools going forward. So the first 5 weeks, you're going to deal with those first 3 phases. Then the last 5 weeks, basically, you're going to be building your school. So you'll be doing experimentation. The 5th week, in week 5, you'll be doing prototyping activity. And then from week 6 on to the final week, you're going to be designing and putting together your presentation of what you believe learning spaces in the future need to be. So when you look at that little statement I have at the bottom, so the design thinking process then oscillates between divergent, convergent thinking modes. And I'll be pointing it out quite a bit as we go through that, but it can be helpful to be aware of the mode that corresponds to the design phase in which you're working in. So some of these will be highly divergent, others will demand that you be convergent and taking the ideas and put them into practical application. So this kind of gives you, a framework for what we will be doing over the next 10 weeks. And we'll talk a little bit more detail, and I'll flesh this out a little bit more for you on Saturday. But at least I wanted to give you, at least a sense of what this design looks like. And so when you look at that, and I hope you downloaded that flow chart that I put in there. And so I put the flow chart together for you. And basically, so just to make sure, don't lose my glasses here. Oh, here we go. Got it over here. So this is what that, hopefully you can see that. That's what the whole flow chart looks like. And one of the things that I did on that flow chart is I related it back mainly to what you learned in 800. So on the right side of that page, on your right, you will see systems thinking. So I relate it to what you're doing in the iceberg, and then on the weeks 1 through 3. So if you look at 1 through 3, inside there, I have going down the U. So basically on the sheet, what you'll see is it will say observe, observe, be aware of VOJ, VOC, and VOF. So I'm going to keep integrating what you learned in 800 and in 625. And also you'll be using, I believe you went through, did you guys do 802 yet or no? I don't think you did.
No, we didn't.
Okay, that's a technology course. So, so that's not important, but you're going to be exposed to, a lot of the technologies going forward. So what that flow chart gives you is a sense of, you're going to be doing a lot of environmental scanning. And so I have a lot of information. If you look on the website, you'll see Jeffrey Sachs material available to you. You'll see Wall Street Journal material about the future. You'll see all types of articles related to research on creativity. So that's there for you to explore as you deal with what the challenge that I'll give you at the end of this will be about. And so when you look at week 4, what you're looking at there is, okay, so what are we learning from the field? What are we learning from talking with each other or talking to people outside of this course about some of the questions that we're raising? And so what you'll be interacting with in that 4th week basically is going from the abstract, the divergent, and starting to begin to play around with organizing this into a convergent point of view so that you'll be able to start formulating what you're going to do in your prototyping activities. Okay, so look at that chart this week, and Saturday, if you have questions about it, I try to make it as easy to understand as possible, but sometimes in my own craziness, there are times that I don't communicate it that well, so that's why I want you to take a look at it and then give me feedback on it. Okay?
Okay.
So, thank you. The voice speaks again. I like that. It just comes across. Okay. Yeah. I always think there's a very thin line between comedy and tragedy. So this is what the challenge basically is going to be is this: how might we redesign our schools in order to meet our students' needs for the world of the 21st century? Now, I think I sent all of you that chapter I wrote for a book on sustainability. Mm-hmm. And the reason I wanted to give you that so that you get a sense of my assumptions and what my mindset is. So when I was a superintendent of schools, as I tell all my students, the proudest moment I ever had as a superintendent was when I had a group of elementary teachers from an entire elementary building come to the school board and ask the board to knock the walls out between their classrooms. And the board allowed that to happen because over a 3-year period of time, I exposed them to a lot of ideas about rethinking design, getting rid of grade level, getting rid of disciplines, organizing teachers collectively in a different learning environment. And, they did it. And it was kind of interesting. I actually have video to prove it because what I did was, to get the community to begin to understand what we were dealing with, we did videos of a day in the life of those kids interacting, within this learning environment. And so to give parents a sense of a new vision or a new view of what a school could look like. So this is what's going to drive your challenge. And those symbols down there below is that the one on your left-hand side, the purple one, that deals with the system. So you're going to look at the entire system of education in terms of what it is, what its mental models are, what are the structures. So you'll do an iceberg on the structures of the system. And then when you look at the top symbol, that's basically, okay, how are we going to redesign the flow of information for kids in the 21st century. And then that bottom one that shows the desk, how are we going to redesign the physical space? What is it going to be? So that's going to be the three areas that your project will be based upon. Plus, the other thing that will happen then is you're gonna tease out what are the necessary learning or what are necessary leadership skills that are going to be needed to bring a community together to make your thing work, to make your ideas work. And then you're going to look at the strategy of, okay, what would be the first steps that we'd have to do to get us to the final shared sense of the future that we're trying to create. So that in a nutshell is what you're going to be designing in 10 weeks. Okay?
Okay.
Now, the one thing I've asked you to do by tomorrow is just do that one page answering those questions that I have there about, are you creative? And, why and the whole bit. And just, upload that. So it's just one page. This is not APA or anything. I just want to get a baseline of where your thinking is or how you're perceiving yourself as it relates to creativity at the beginning of this course. So that's all that is. So I want you to write that down, upload those, so at least we have a starting point for your thinking over the next 10 weeks. All right? Okay, good. Hey, I got a couple more. That's pretty good. So, whoops, see, I thought I did the wrong thing. So I actually have the wrong PowerPoint that I did today. I was wondering, these aren't working exactly right. So basically, I'm just going to end right at this particular point and say, okay, see you on Saturday. But also field any questions that you have based on the syllabus or anything of that nature. Or answer the phone or whatever.
What time are we meeting on Saturday?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? Okay.
10 to 2.
10 to 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't know where yet, right?
Pardon me?
We don't know where yet, right?
Well, he's trying to get us in Drexel 1 in room 004, but right now they have us in the right building next to the main building, up in a room there. So I don't know if we're going to change it, but Owen will send that out to all of us by hopefully Saturday morning.
Dr. Gould,
Yes.
do we have any idea about where we possibly might be meeting for the July 25th?
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Talk about that. I'm heading down to DC for a couple days to explore some interesting places that we can go and visit around innovation. So we'll talk about that in more detail on Saturday.
Okay.
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 So anything else for the good of the group?
No.
Okay. So that's basically it. I'm going to stop the recording then, and I will upload this onto YouTube because I usually put it there because I don't think we have everyone here. We go 1, 2, 3. Let me see. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, maybe we do have the whole group. Yeah, we might have everybody. I don't have to upload this. That's good. But at least I do have it recorded.